Oh, we don't have any instruments today, unfortunately.
We have the instruments of our voice.
Severe oversight. I'm not about to sing a song. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CorridorCast. Today, it's Fenner, Dean, and myself, Niko, sitting on the couch. No Jake today. It's just us. AI boys, I guess.
AI boys.
Hey, congrats on such an awesome video dropping this past weekend, guys.
Thank you, Niko.
Thanks, man. I was very proud of it. It was really fun to work on.
Yeah, and you can tell we're both super tired.
Yeah.
Working on that.
Yeah, I think Dean and I burned the candle a little bit there.
Yeah, both ends.
It's I don't know. It's easy to do that when you're having fun and during like doing cool stuff and learning a ton.
Yep, well, and the first, we're seeing the reactions. People seem very positive about it. I'm glad people are pulling out all the Easter eggs we stuck in there and stuff. And as big Spider-Man fans, I think it was super fun to put that all in there. And I think hopefully it came across.
Well, I mean, I think that you guys have currently done the best artistic creation with Stable Diffusion, in my opinion. Like, not to like rank everything in the world, but a lot of people have been generating images of Stable Diffusion and doing experiments, but in my opinion, you guys are kind of the first ones to go out there and not only create a finished product. I mean, other people have created finished products, but you did so in a way where, having a different picture for every frame actually makes sense in the story that you guys are doing, and it's visually captivating, and it's just one small part of an actual like creative whole of a piece that you guys made. It's not like, hey, I applied a filter to a video and now it's art. Like, that's not what you guys did.
There's been a lot of stuff. There has been a lot of videos made with Stable Diffusion, but pretty much all of it has been, I don't know what the plugin's called, but you can essentially have each frame denoise the last frame. Yeah, deform. And you can, we've done it. You can create animations, these really trippy, like psychedelic animations that will just plunge further and further into this, endless image of AI gobbledygook, but I do think we're the first people to make something that has some consistency and it's not just 100% hallucination.
Yeah, there's a very small overlap between like actual visual effects artists and people using AI for generation, like synthesized media. There's a couple of them out there, but like there's not that many of them out there.
Yeah, it was like, Dean, because this was your idea to be like, what if we did some Spider-Verse thing? And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, this is like the perfect idea for this, where you're like, okay, we can have this very distinct art style, which also has a history of being like multiversal in nature. So it's like, hey, we can use it to have all these cool different art styles and different characters. Like,
it was honestly, we found through the process like perfect for it because so much of Spider-Verse is based on glitches and changing art styles and stuff like that. And it was a good mask for us to hide all of the little inconsistencies with the AI. But like I hope like the biggest goal with the video, I think, is like for somebody to watch it and have no idea that there was AI touching it. And I did see plenty of comments where somebody would respond like, hey, oh no, this was actually, AI or whatever. Because people thought it was animation. Like, oh, this was the best fan animation I've seen in a while or something like that. So,
I mean, the rips have already started of people cutting out all of our stuff and then just being like, new leaked scene from across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And, thankfully, like the first comment most of those like, hey, this is Corridor's video. But a few, layers down, you find the, whoa, crazy. And it's like, oh, they bought it.
Yeah.
But I think it's really easy to underestimate how much actual like work went into it. Because also watching the side-by-sides that you posted, Fenner, on your Instagram and on the Corridor Instagram, like a lot of the shots I thought were just like Spider-Verse shots. It's like some extra work put onto them, but they're full on like composites taken from original Spider-Man films that have nothing to do with Spider-Verse. And all that stuff is added. New graphics are generated.
Yep.
Like full on.
Yeah. Getting into it, Dean and I were kind of like, man, we can't just cut stuff out and put it in. So it was like every single shot, except for the one shot at the start where Peter turns around and goes like, huh? Every single one is like a VFX shot. So it ended up being a lot of work, but it was really rewarding. And like, man, that last day when we were working on it and we had got it to a point where we're like, it's done. Let's just spend like 4 hours polishing it. That was so much fun. Where we're just like, let's just tweak this. Like, it was great.
But also, I think that was part of the joy of the process, is like we talk about it in the crew video, but like looking at the Spider-Verse film and figuring out, like, I mean, obviously it's such a creative achievement, that movie, just from, there's like CG animation before Spider-Verse, and there's CG animation after Spider-Verse. And we've had guest on the React show, Alex Snow, who talks a lot about this, of how CG animation these days is really starting to push. It's like a new era. It's like they're starting to push the appeal of these animations, each frame having it look like a painting rather than it being a shortcut for animation. Because the thing is, like with with classic 2D animation, you can't get shading and you can't get complex depth,
geometric structure.
Structure. And I think we did an episode about Klaus, the Netflix 2D animated film. It was using, I think, a process in Nuke to add a whole depth lighting pass to the characters.
Yeah. Cool.
And the director of the film was saying, like, this didn't used to be possible. And we used to look at the DVD covers of like animated films from the 80s and 90s and be like, I wish we could make the movie look like that. Like the way animation was done, like it wasn't an intentional thing to have it look flat. It's like if they had the option, they would have given it depth, and like CG gives you that ability to do that in a reasonable amount of time. But I think a lot of studios got caught up in the tech, and they lost the like principles of animation. And Spider-Verse brought that back. And so like going frame by frame through that film, it's just sort of like every frame is, and this was their intention, every frame was just gorgeous and like so sculpted.
One of the coolest things from watching some of the Spider-Verse behind the scenes is the supervisor on it was saying you can pause that movie and every single frame is legible, which is so cool because they didn't use motion blur. Like, occasionally it's used when like to really make it a moment, and then when they do, it's like this steppy kind of like almost frame blending thing.
Or even they use like smearing. Like having doubling up on the arm as it's moving.
But it's like every frame is so clear, and it's I don't know. That movie, the first time I watched it, was still it blew my mind and was super inspiring. So just when we were like had our opportunity to be like, let's just do something kind of like inspired by this, using this, and I don't know, it was so cool to kind of create our own little adventure within that like art style and universe. Like it was super cool. So
when you were working with other companies, how much, like, granted, like the AI machine learning landscape changed a lot in like the past 6 months, but when you were working at the other companies, how much like was machine learning part of your pipeline there?
Very little. Like I think it's just starting to kind of roll into some studios, but that is like the probably one of the worst parts of larger scale studios is there's such an established pipeline that any sort of change is very slow. So, it's getting there, but I remember I have a really good friend of mine, Mike Asatura. He was really early to the deep fake thing. So he was like very early on, and he had a really hard time just being like, hey guys, can I use this software to do deep fakes because we have a shot that we need to replace someone's face with another actor? And they're like, yeah, well, okay, we'll try to get it set up. Like that's not exactly the same, but it it's that same process of like just having it's not really that present. I mean, there's R&D departments at every big studio that's starting to roll that stuff in, but it's been really nice at Corridor just being like, sweet, let's use Magic Mask. It's awesome. Like, it's not perfect, but God damn, it's good. Like, Dean basically rolled Magic Mask like Roto just mats out for every single shot. So.
Yeah, it's like we edited the piece together, and then in like 10 minutes, I had most of the shots. Like,
and it was like, there's little pops here and there, and we kind of were able to, again, like you said, hide behind it with the Spider-Verse stuff. But
and it's like
it worked.
Given time, like given another 5 minutes, I probably could have dialed it in a little more.
Exactly.
It's gonna take twice as long, 10 minutes instead of 5.
Yeah, exactly. Which is just like, man, having like this piece wouldn't have been possible without machine learning. We wouldn't have been able to do that without Magic Mask.
Yeah.
We couldn't have gone in.
We should
and
mention what Magic Mask is.
Oh, yeah. Magic Mask is DaVinci Resolve. They just rolled it into their actual Fusion pipeline, but it was traditionally in their color page. It's basically just like AI generated roto. You basically do a couple little squiggles, hit play, and it sort of figures out what to extract from your scene. And it's black magic wizardry.
No, it's straight up magic. And that's why they call it that.
If you've heard of RotoBrush with After Effects, or you've used it, this is basically RotoBrush times 100.
Which is
it
crazy.
It calculates 100 times faster.
Because RotoBrush 2 is really good, but this is like you literally just draw a line on a person, and it's like you could pretty much get a perfect mask. Especially if it's just like a subject and a background.
Yeah.
It just nails it every time. And it's just so much of this AI stuff, you know, we've talked a lot about this. Is it takes all of the boring shit out of the process.
Yes, everybody hating on it doesn't realize it's taking all the boring crap out that we don't like doing.
Yeah. And it's like, well, you're going to take this roto, you know, artist's job where I had to sit there for 8 hours and hand cut out a frame. It's like, no, now that person can do something creative, you know, instead of just, grunt labor.
Yeah. And I think that was something you got across really well in the crew video. Like that crew video you edited together in like 2 days because you were editing the actual short. It turned out so well. And I love you, like the discussion you guys had just about the ethics of AI in that. And what I think we tried to get across in the video was that it's a tool. I don't think it's going to be this doom and gloom, take every artist's job thing. It's going to hopefully enable people to be more creative. And
I mean, like if you, again, going back to those wipes that you have, it's like, you're just using assets. It's like anything else. It's just, the computer has generated something that is really close to what you want, but you still have to take it and manipulate it, match the colors, you know, do all kinds of things. And I mean, we said this a few months ago about video, but I don't know that it'll be ever at the point where you just click a button and you're done with it. And that's such a boring concept to me, at least, as especially like first getting into Stable Diffusion, like after we made our Death of VFX video, I was like, holy crap. That was when I really had the moment of like, this is going to change everything. Getting into it, immediately I was bored by like text to image, like just typing something in, image comes out. It's like, this is so cool, but it doesn't mean anything to me personally.
It's about as boring as stock imagery.
Yeah. And like
it's stock image generator. Super boring. It's just really cool looking stock image sometimes.
Yeah.
That's it.
The first thing for me that I was like, oh, I love this. It was discovering image to image, where you could give it an input image, and you basically have a slider of 0 being the original image, 1 being purely random, you know, based on the prompt. And like, you can actually start to mix a process of like, you know, giving it an original input image and then putting that in Photoshop and then taking it back and in painting and doing all these different things and getting it to be exactly what you want in a super short amount of time.
Yeah.
You know?
And I guess I do understand the more traditional artist like hesitation towards it, where it's like, you know, it is this weird gray area of, it is copying styles.
For sure.
And like, you know, I've seen some really cool art in the style of guys like Greg Rakowski that he didn't create, but it's like, and like, I could see like traditional concept artists as well. That's definitely something that I think that industry will have a bit of a weird shift. But I guess my perspective on it is that if I was working as a professional concept artist right now, I'd be like, sweet, I'm going to really try to learn this tool and, you know,
like, cool, this will save me some time drawing the mountains in the background, because you're still gonna have to draw the actual concepts.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Right.
Believe it or not, you can't just type in some words and get your unique vision.
Yeah, it's like you said, Dean. It's like it's creating assets, and maybe that helps you display 10 different versions of something to a client, and they can just iterate, and it'll just make that process better. I did see one guy on LinkedIn who's a concept artist, and he trained a Dream Booth model on all of his own concept art.
That's cool.
And he was like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
he's like, it just gives me this starting point of like, I'll just do like a batch of 5. And then I'm like, I like that one. I'm going to work off that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like just to,
it's
and
so
weird.
much of, I mean, it's really funny because a lot of concept art is taking existing images, cutting things out and putting them in place. And like, you know, I can't wait for the day that a program like Photoshop or something has an incorporated tool that is like the Stable Diffusion paintbrush, which is just like, you know, you have your image, you can, you know, auto select an object and be like, I want to change it to this, and just sort of like continually get closer to what you want. But again, it's like, I am just so bored by the idea that it like the thing that people fear, which is like, you're just going to type something and something comes out. Like, and I think that's why, like, you know, video is pushing that even farther, because you have to, like Spider-Verse, you have to make sure every frame is what you want. And that's thousands and thousands of pictures. So it'll never get to the point where
I'll never say never.
Well, like,
it's not going to happen in the next year.
Yeah, but it's just
not going to happen for a while.
Cut to 2 weeks later.
That you won't want to have like a human voice coming through the thing, even if most of it's AI.
It's funny that you're talking about this, because like right now I'm doing all the prep for the video we're shooting tomorrow, which is what was the title that you came up with again? It's how to tell who's real on the internet.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. But basically, this video is it's a discussion about how to spot fake videos / AI generated videos, and one of the segments is going to be looking at art, basically Stable Diffusion art versus real art. And I was like, okay, well, for the segment, you know, we were talking about this idea of like, why don't we start it off with a guessing game? We put 2 pictures up, you guess which one's AI, which one's the real thing. Like, cool. Well, I'm gonna kick things off. I'm gonna get some Greg Rakowski pictures, and then I'll generate some Greg Rakowski pictures. So I went, like, here's a cool dragon picture, here's a cool knight fighting another knight, you know, whatever. I grabbed some cool pictures from his ArtStation page. I'm like, okay, hop over to Stable Diffusion, start typing in, you know, a red dragon painted by Greg Rakowski, and like every single one is garbage. It's like, I thought it'd be like, you know, I can get something kind of close. Like, no, like literally getting a just a cohesive dragon and nothing else is nearly impossible out of Stable Diffusion.
Did you try any image to image ones?
I didn't, because that's cheating. Yeah. That's when you start. Image to image is just actually drawing something now.
Yeah,
you know, with the help of like, you know, that at that point it's like no different than like photoshopping. Like, here, you know, here's some tools to tweak your colors or like, you know, fix some lines. But like, yeah, like to actually generate something that's anywhere close to Greg Rakowski is currently impossible.
Yeah,
and it's a long ways away. And it's like, well, what about those great pictures of people's faces I see? It's like, cool. Like, if I give you a model, if I give you like 100,000 images of a human face, I can train an AI to give you one more image of a human face, and it's going to look fine. But the moment you want something unique, the moment you want like a special face tattoo, you know, it's done. It doesn't work. You know, it's like, I specifically want this scar, and I want it to be the same scar when the face is turned a little bit. You know, it's like, nope,
no way.
It's not going to work. Even like I was trying Van Gogh. Like, you'd think, all right, you know, you can mimic Van Gogh style pretty easily, right? No. No, like it's close to like the really untrained eye. It's close, but the moment you scrutinize it just a little bit, you're like, yeah, it lacks concept and direction and structure. And, you know, it's like, it just immediately falls apart.
It's kind of a terrifying thing zooming into AI art, because it's really just like looking at a dream or something.
Yeah,
the second that you start to break it open, it's like, does it even, this isn't even anything. It's actually like the core of this is just random stuff.
I mean, it's like the same concept behind cartooning. You know, it's like cartooning is like, what's the minimum number of lines and shapes I can put down to like to create emotion? You know, it's like, oh, those 2 blobs and that one other blob, definitely anger.
Well, it was so funny, like, because we would be generating these random just frames for glitch frames and stuff, and you'd be like, Spider-Man climbing a building, and then it's just like some red and blue squished on some gray. But I was like, if I squint, that's Spider-Man. Like,
if you squint,
if it flashes for one frame, it's Spider-Man. But like a lot of those individual frames is just like weirdness. Like, it's it's really
I mean,
cool.
in a
like,
way, it's almost like the way a human artist would work is that you draw the broad strokes first. And like the AI is working from a perspective of like, every pixel is going to come out at once, and it's going to be something I've seen before. You know, it's not sort of like, you know, drawing each stroke one at a time.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like, I'm really starting to feel the tool, right?
Yeah.
The whole concept of like, we're on this precipice of mankind, like, destroying itself on the mountains of, like that's not happening anymore. Now it's like, okay, I see where this fits in. It's like fancy Photoshop.
Yeah.
It's like,
it really
this is not a industry killer. It's like, it's, certainly a good taste of what machine learning is going to bring us. But what machine learning is bringing us is not the death of the artist. Machine learning machine learning is bringing us the death of tedium.
Yeah.
It's like awesome. Like we don't deride Christopher Nolan for not touching a camera. It's like, Steven Spielberg doesn't necessarily write his scripts. It's like, we don't deride him like, oh, you just pushed a button, your money button, and you got a script and you filmed it.
Yeah.
And you didn't even film it. You hired somebody else to actually hold the camera. You just stood there and pushed a button. It's like, you don't say that about them. It's like, because there's obviously so much to actually still making something outside of like actually having to physically make it. And the AI is the same thing where it's like, cool, I pushed a button and it gave me a good picture of a mountain. Too bad that's not a story.
Yeah.
I still need to take that image of a mountain now and insert it into my work of art and work on the composition and create my story and figure out why you even give a crap that there's a mountain in my picture in the first place. Like, AI is not replacing any of that, know?
Well, and I think that's possibly the thing that people are afraid of. Like, I recognize for sure that there is the element of like, it could be seen as like stealing somebody's art style, but there's also the like gatekeeping aspect of it, which is like, I went to art school and I have I am accredited to tell people stories, and I can't have just some random kid on his laptop on Google Collab, making cool stuff. And we talk about it in the crew video, but there is of course a line where you're just into the stealing mode. But I kind of made this analogy in the video, but like, when hip hop first started as an art form, the music industry didn't see it as music. They were like, this is just, they're just using music, other music, and talking over it, and it's only now that we see like, oh, it is its own art form. And like, when somebody samples a song, like, Kanye West, sorry, he's
you're thinking of a better example.
Better example right now, but those songs like are such a creative use of samples, to the point where it's totally transformative. Like taking the like, there's one song where he takes the instrumental noodling at like the beginning of the song, like 2 seconds of it, and that's No Church in the Wild.
Yeah.
And it's like doing that with AI, I think, is really the exciting thing, is like taking just a nugget of something and then making that into a whole new thing, or but yeah, that's how I think of it.
That's where the artistry comes in.
Yeah.
It's like, I took this little 2-second sample, but I made a whole track out of it. Or I took this, I don't know, like weirdly generated like Cowboy Doctor Strange and somehow turn that into a scene in a thing. But you have to actually, it's, Niko, you were saying, I guess that was last week or a couple weeks ago, I don't know, it's all a blur now, but you were talking about just getting to a point where it's like using these tools to tell a unique story. And that's what's so awesome about this stuff, is it breaks down that barrier to entry. I mean, just open source tools in general, or free tools, like, stuff like Blender is like, man, if you want to make some cool animated scene, go do that. Then run it through Stable Diffusion. And like, it's so cool. Like, it's all just, to me, it's like breaking down that barrier to entry a little bit, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody likes drama, and we've all watched Terminator 2. So it's like, the moment we can be like, AI, it's sentient. My job is at risk. It's me versus the machines now. Like, obviously people like to indulge in that fantasy a little bit. But, the other thing I'm reminded of as we talk about all this is like, no one actually decides what art is. No one makes the rules. Like, no one gets to be like, you can't like that. That's not how art is made. It's like, if you like it, you like it. Screw everybody else.
Exactly.
Like, so what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then kind of going off the point of, people in art school being kind of gatekeepers. I think there's also this
thing
against
art school.
Was that?
What do you have against art school,
Well, the gatekeeping people.
I went to art school, Dean.
But you haven't been gatekeeping. You've opened the gates for the people. You opened the gates for like Fenner and I, like learning off your stuff, and that's the cool. Like sharing knowledge is the cool thing, but like kind of telling people like, hey, you can't do that. There's rules here. It just feels. I just feel like this might be a kind of separate thing, but there was this whole thing where people were telling like coal miners to learn how to code. The whole like when AI automation, all those fears started rising, it was like, oh, the truck drivers are going to lose all their jobs. Mm-hmm. But the second it hit people in art schools, they're like, I'm not going to learn how to use this freaking program. What do you mean? I'm going to draw with my hand the way I always have.
That's been the thing that is like, I guess my biggest, like, I don't know, conflict with it is, it is kind of like, it's a new tool. Unfortunately, you got to learn it. Like, and not unfortunately, it's like, this is awesome. You get to learn this. Like it's.
Yeah. And so, it's just this kind of thing where people there's this split of like, you want your art to be like so representative of what you like and what you feel deep down, but also it is something you provide to a community, right? It's a commodity, or it's a thing that you are giving to others to like improve their lives, just the way like cooking food for somebody is. So if there's a better way to do it, to bring it to more people.
Literally nobody complains about us having Magic Mask and Da Vinci. Nobody complains about us shooting on digital instead of film. Nobody complains about us using green screens instead of cutting things out by hand. In like Stable Diffusion or any AI generated stuff, it's like building a video game. It's not building the video game for you. It's just giving you a texture for like the grass.
Yeah.
It's like, perfect. I needed a texture for the grass. And rather than having to go outside and take a picture of the grass, I can just type in grass texture. It's like, that's what it's doing for you. It's not video game level. It's like, you can't type that in and just get something. It's just, it's like, it's objects. It's just giving you little objects. It's stock footage. And that's all it is.
It makes me so amped. Cause like
me too. Cause I don't have to screw around with all that shit anymore.
Cause I know like we're all like sci-fi heavy, people, fantasy heavy people. And it's like, you have these stories in your head that you like, I can't ever tell that story because I don't have $150 million.
Yeah.
But like, if I have the ability to just, like we're talking about with all these free programs like Blender, Unreal, like it's opening up the floodgates of like, and even if everybody's able to do it, it's like, at least I could tell the story that's in my head before I die. It's like
exactly.
all these stories that you thought about since you were a kid. It's like, I might actually get to like make those in my free time, like a painter would.
Yeah.
Like a painter would paint a painting. It's like maybe film is just going to become like painting, where it's like anybody can do it, you know?
I mean, that's the biggest thing for me with all of this is it enables you to make more cool stuff. Like, and it's working on the Spider-Verse thing together. I was like, dude, we can do such cool stuff. Like, again, I think it was a little bit of like perfect use case for it, but I think we can
going forward, it's only going to get, the pace has been insane. I sent Niko something the other day, but my dad had a freaking, we were joking about how it was going to become an iPhone app, like we were playing around with it. And then I like saw my parents, and my dad was using basically an implementation of Dream Booth that's just like an iPhone app.
Wow.
Yeah, which was made by the guy that actually started the Discord.
Yeah.
That we directed everybody towards. Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, this is already out there. It's already, easily available. And, as much like, because for us, like the work on the Spider-Man short was like a lot of that is just representative of, the things that we've learned about filmmaking. Like it's not just AI, but like the AI stuff in it, I don't honestly know that much about like Stable Diffusion. I've learned a ton about it in the past month or so, but there's still like really basic things where I'm like, I don't know how that works, but it's like, it's really not that hard to use.
Yeah.
And like,
well, it's kind of, I always feel the same way with using different tools and stuff, but then I kind of think I'm like, I don't actually know how like a paintbrush works. You know, I'm like, I don't.
You don't do a lot of oil painting.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it's like I understand there's paint and there's a brush, but it's like it's just It's this weird thing that I've always struggled with. It's like this balance of being a technical artist and it's like versus a creative artist, and it's like I think as long as you can understand how to use the tools, you don't need to understand how the tools
and
work.
Niko,
There's a balance there for sure.
Yeah, we had talked about this a little bit where you were kind of like, I could be keeping up with all of this because the pace of the tech is moving so fast. Like I could be keeping up with all of this, and then in 2 weeks it could be like a click of a button and really easy to use rather than like I have to open Anaconda
always
or
be
Python.
careful about how much time you spent solving problems.
Yeah.
Because there are teams of people solving the problems at the actual companies that know what they're doing. You know, it's like, you know, like the temporal consistency thing, right? You're trying to get so it doesn't flicker for every frame. You sit there like, all right, here's a new process and a new method. And if I do this and I make this pipeline, hey, this kind of works. All right, let's get the rest of the team trained up on this pipeline. Cool, we have a whole workflow going. It's all dialed in. Don't change a thing. Now we can shoot a whole project around this new pipeline. Let's go. 2 months later, you finally have a cartoon, a full-blown cartoon that you shot with cameras, but it still took a lot of work. But now you did it. And it's like, and then like a week later, they're like, company's like, okay, here's a new method. Works great. Just click a button.
Yeah.
And you're like, dang it.
Seriously. Well, I was even, you posted that example, that new test today. And the thing I noticed right away was like the eyes were so consistent. And that was probably the biggest thing we had jumping around. Like, was that a new process you're doing?
Yeah.
I don't know if we should talk about it too much.
So here's the thing. It's like, this is the world of open source and sharing knowledge, right? But I don't want to share it until I get the video out.
Yeah, that's cool.
I get at least a couple weeks.
Let's do it first.
We did the same thing with the Spider-Man video. We're like, we can't tell anybody. And then when the video's out, we'll tell everybody. We'll show you exactly how to do it. But like, there's just a fun thing of like, you know, it's cool to be the person to like figure it out first, especially when every 2 weeks it's like 100 times better.
It does feel cutting edge right now, and like.
And that's a really fun aspect of it is like, I'm sure in a year it'll be so well implemented in all these programs that it won't feel new right now. But like, again, like you're talking about, there's these massive companies with like hundreds of millions of dollars in R&D. And like, here we are on this YouTube channel. It's like, we're doing stuff that, you know, Hollywood films aren't doing. And it's like,
well, that's the only reason like Corridor has survived as like a company is because we can do things faster. And like, you know, obviously like I'm sure there's somebody at ILM messing around with Stable Diffusion, you know, it's like, you know, cool. But like, even if they actually did something really nuts with it and they implemented it into workflow, you're not going to see it for 2 years, you know, because it takes that long for things to get finished.
I love that analogy of like, it's like ships in the ocean. A giant container ship takes forever to turn. But if you're just on a jet ski, like the Corridor digital jet ski, you're like, oh, sweet, Stable Diffusion. And shred over there. Like,
and you got a little bit of time to play around in that water before that big cargo ship gets there. But it'll get there at some point.
It comes in swamps.
So it's like, we just have that ability to be like, you know, just to go out there and try it. And then it's in our blood. It's kind of how Corridor started. It's like, okay, here's a cool visual tool. Well, you know, we don't learn the visual tools because we like learning visual tools. We learn the visual tools because we want to make stuff with them, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, so then we go and you make something with it, but it just takes a few weeks and you just do it quick and it's casual and you're not worried about it being perfect. And boom, suddenly it's out there.
It's also the best way to learn something is like diving into a project. Cause if, like this year I've been like learning 3D and I had tried, you know, every few years I would open the Blender donut and I would do it. And I'm like, there's no hook here. But the second I was like, you know, around you guys and everybody's like, you know, do this a render or like I'm going to make a little thing. And that's going to be, you know, for these videos that we do, I was like, oh, I'll just make something. My goal will be to make something. And if there's something I want to do, I'll just Google it and learn how to do it. And that's like, I mean, at least for the YouTube generation, that's like how we've learned everything. Is it's just the knowledge is all available, and you know, I was even thinking about with YouTube, like the idea that you can make a vlog, edit it together, like Casey Neistat. Like you can make a vlog, edit it together, and put out a like 15-minute video that is a whole story with footage and everything. Like Imagine telling somebody in the 20s that you could do that.
Imagine telling somebody in the 80s that you
in the
could do
80s, yeah.
that. We take that so for granted now that you just film something and edit it. It's like nonlinear editors like weren't invented until the 90s. Like it hasn't been around that long. And now we're just like, whatever. Like who cares?
Yeah. And imagine what the future of this stuff is, that like the YouTubers you love, it's not that you're watching like vlogs, you're watching a full animated episode of television like every week from your favorite creators.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, let's say a tool like Magic Mask comes along and it's like, hey, this divides, like this decimates, like literally this takes 1/10 as long to do something now that used to take me a lot longer. So I can go out and do the exact same shot that a major studio would do, but I need 1/10 of the man hours or 1/10 of the manpower. And so that means if I go out and I do a little short that has 10 effect shots in it, like I can do this at studio level, you know, and with a team of my size, and you go out and you do it and you get it done. It's out there and it's like, wow, you just did the thing that Disney can't do or whatever. You know, it's like, granted, Disney can do it. Give them another year. Like, you know, like I said, there's that slow thing happening, but like, it's just being able to get out there and do it quick and just move on to the next and trying things. It's really a really awesome spot to be in. And the online audience is like, just like us, they have embraced the jank. Like people are okay with jank these days. You know, something's not perfect. It doesn't matter if the concept's cool. It doesn't matter if you're just authentically trying to make something cool. Like no one's going on like Joel Haver's videos and being like, your lines popped.
Yeah, there was some blinding.
You know?
I had not heard of Joel Haver until this week, and I have been binging his videos. They're so funny, man. The like RPG ones, it's just that perfectly captures.
And like his animation style using EBSynth is like, it gets, and you always talk about this with the old Corridor videos, is like it gets the idea across. Like the execution is good, good enough that you get what it's going for, and like that's truly all that matters. Because like, yeah, we could have like gone in and fixed Peter's eyes on every frame of him animated in that short, but it's like,
but the video still wouldn't be out.
Yeah. And it like,
screw that.
It will never be like perfect, but we got it to the point where it got the idea across, you know, the idea that we're going for.
Yeah. The crazy thing, just going back to Joel Haver, is like you're saying, it's like, it's good enough to get the idea across, but then that idea becomes so like good and so relatable that now that art style becomes, oh, that's the Joel Haver art style.
Yeah.
And there's other YouTube channels now that are like just doing his art style, which
Yeah.
is crazy. It's like, what?
And there's a charm, there's an added joke in some of what that art style provides to his videos, because like a little bit of that jank is kind of funny.
Yeah.
You know?
It's style matters.
Yeah.
It does matter. Like you can't present a very clean, hyper polished style and have jankiness in it, right? You do need to have it match the vibe of what you're presenting. But that said, it's like, if you can't achieve a perfectly crystal clear cinematic style, then be like, okay, well, that's not my style.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know if you guys have seen the new Black Panther yet, but there's a sequence in it where I found it super jarring. It was cutting between, this was really weird too. It was cutting between the IMAX aspect ratio and like a cinematic aspect ratio from shot to shot.
That's weird.
Oh,
which was, because usually it's like, oh, this is an IMAX sequence, cool. But it was from shot to shot. It was super weird.
That is really weird.
It's super jarring. And then one of them was very clearly, like, not that it was bad, but it was blue screen, like, set.
Wait, give me because I've seen it. What part are you generally talking about?
The kind of big finale battle.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, jeez, yeah.
Yeah, and then it would cut to the other kind of battle happening, and it's like this beautiful slow-mo cinematic in like practical sand.
Yeah,
and like it's like all like super shallow depth of field, then to like wide locked off camera on blue screen. I was like, what is happening? Like it was super jarring, and it was like, if you're gonna have that polished, like this is cinema, it was super jarring to then jump to like, this is very VFX heavy, like blue screen comp.
To tie that into Spider-Verse, that's like why I love that movie so much, because so many comic book movies are like, especially Marvel. Marvel is like split between two styles, which is, and there are times, you know, I've looked at these movies super closely over the years because we've been making these react videos and stuff. And there's a specific scene in Civil War where it's like the airport scene, and Iron Man and Captain America first like meet up in the middle of this airport, which all looks like it's shot on a green screen, you know. But you can tell that Iron Man is looking one direction before Spider-Man shows up. He's looking one direction, and it's very serious, like, and the very cinematic lighting, and like it's very like part of the tone that I liked about that movie, which is more of like a political thriller. And then when Spider-Man shows up and they cut to Iron Man's reactions when he turns, you can tell he's got like maybe a wig on or something that is like trying to, make his hair look like it did during that shoot. Flatter lighting, and it's all the quips. And you can tell with these movies that they do this like joke pass, or this like, I don't take this seriously pass. And that's with the Marvel films is like what really pulls me out of it is that there's so much undercutting the gravitas of the situation by characters being like, none of this makes sense,
Yeah.
And I think whereas Spider-Verse like tonally was just, it never did that, even though it had tons of quips, tons of humor, even like fourth wall breaking stuff in the beginning. They talk about like the Spider-Man popsicle.
Yeah.
But there's no moment during the final battle where somebody's like, this is dumb, don't take this seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's I think my biggest issue with Marvel as well. It's like here are the stakes. Yeah, they don't really matter though. Here's a goof. Like
yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of this weird thing that I don't know. It definitely takes away from those movies.
Yeah. And I miss the days of like super earnest adventure films, and that's the stuff that I find myself gravitating more and more towards, like, movies that came out when I was younger that were like, they went fully into it. And they're, like, what are some movies that came out recently? Like the Batman took itself. There's no undercutting of the world of that the characters live in.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dune did that. It's just, there's a lot of these, hopefully more big budget movies are going to come out and stop doing this. Like, there's got to be a joke every 5 seconds thing.
Yeah. I feel like Dune was a great example of that. It's like, here's the world, you're going to be in this. Like, here's the style.
Yeah.
Like, it was very well done in terms of
there's
that.
no like, hey, this guy's wearing a weird outfit by somebody in the movie,
I mean, we just need to wait for filmmaking to democratize a little bit more,
Yeah.
It's like being able to explore those kind of storytelling ideas. Narrative is really hard to do, right? You have to build worlds, you have to build characters, you have to deal with acting. And like, not everybody's an actor. Not everybody looks like the character they want. Not everybody sounds like the character they want, even if they can emote correctly, let alone direct and write well or shoot something. Like, but we're close. We're getting there. Something I've been thinking about is like, so many companies that exist off of user-generated content. And as we're seeing, not just with machine learning and AI, but just with all the tools that we're using, like, it's becoming easier and easier and easier for people to make content. And it's not necessarily easy, but it's becoming easier. But so many of these companies have become multi-billion dollar companies purely riding off the backs of all the people making content for their platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And you have someone like YouTube, who I think has done a really solid job of working with the people that make content on their platforms, right? I don't feel exploited by YouTube at all, right?
Yeah.
But then you have other companies like Facebook or TikTok that, in my opinion, very much exploit people in their
TikTok's the big
quest for audience and their quest for, having somebody to like absorb their art.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, you make all the content, we'll keep all the money.
Yeah.
And it's weird that like in a world where people talk about people being exploited, people kind of just, I feel like you hear rumblings of it, but people really kind of just turn a blind eye towards something like TikTok or Facebook, where they've literally made billions of dollars and they haven't given any of it to the people that made it so they could have billions of dollars, which is the people making content. Like,
well, and also on TikTok, it's like there's just a top rung of like, for if it's like the dancing TikToks or whatever, like there's one girl who's making all the money, and then all of these other people don't get anything. And she's like using their dances and all this stuff. And it's just, it is kind of the lowest common denominator of all these platforms. Whereas like you're saying, like YouTube, it feels so much more democratic, where you can be a small creator and make like a like a middle class income by just making your like cooking videos or whatever, you know, by making just like having 100,000 people who are going to show up for your videos.
Yeah. And, you know, who knows if that'll change on YouTube. But
yeah, I hope it
at the very least, it's out of all the different platforms, YouTube is one that very clearly has a relationship with the content creators on the platform, you know? But it's just, yeah, like Netflix makes their own videos. If Netflix just started taking people's videos and like, you know, oh, that's a cool video you put on whatever service. It's mine now. I'm going to put it on Netflix. People can pay a subscription and watch it. Be like, no,
Yeah.
you can't do that. But apparently it's totally okay for Facebook to do it. And it's totally okay for TikTok to do it. You know, it's like, and to an extent, it's totally okay for Instagram to do it. But like, yeah, we're in this little bit of a weird bump, I think, in terms of art, where it's like, it's becoming easier and easier and easier to do. And you have all these systems that had to be built around creating this because it was really expensive and hard to do. And you, in ways, it is still very expensive and hard to do, but like these systems need that income to prop themselves up. And so like they're kind of finishing their end game, wherever that end game is going. And like this new world's kind of coming out, but like you have all these in-between companies where it's like, oh, user-generated content is a thing, but it's kind of janky, so we don't actually have to pay anybody for it, but they'll definitely grow our platforms. Whoever can get the best user-generated content, you get, you know, wins. And like, I think that bubble's going to pop in about 5 to 10 years. And then you're going to have to see, like, then you're going to see, I think, stuff like either Netflix or YouTube really kind of dominating the scene, where it's like, you know, Netflix at a certain point is just going to be thousands of executives hiring thousands of filmmakers at honestly normal budgets, you know, like normal cable television budgets, to be like, make us a show about this, make us a show about that, which is basically what YouTube is at this point, just with like a little bit more middleman, you know? And that's cool. That's fine. You know, whatever. Great. Good job. You guys have an actual industry, you know? YouTube's obviously taking another slightly more algorithmic path, but it still boils down to someone's got to shake the hands with Coca-Cola and sell the ads, and someone's got to shake the hands with the partners who get the views, you know? It's really not 100% automated. Like we obviously talk to YouTube reps all the time. You know, it's a human to human thing. You know, if you're somebody with 1,000 subs, you're not going to be able to talk to a YouTube rep. But if you're making real shows, it's just a slightly more algorithmized version of what's happening on Netflix. You know, we just have an executive producer calling the shots. They're just like, if you can get the views, we'll give you the budget. It's like, okay, it's just like slightly reversed. Yeah. But we're getting close. I mean, you know, you guys demonstrated with the Spider-Verse video that like we're getting close to a time when somebody can go like, I have a vision for this world or for this character or for this style. And a lot of it is just world building. You know, it's like, it's hard to build worlds, but I have a vision. Can I make it a real thing? And it's like, we're getting there.
Yeah.
You know, Fenner, you happen to be like a champion at nuke and compositing. Not everybody is. You know,
which is not free.
Which is also not free.
Yeah.
You know,
and
it's
that,
like
I mean, to be honest, that is like the thing that makes the video what it is like your input on that stuff, where it's like, otherwise it would have just been, that's a cool idea. But like the artistry that you applied to it is what made it, I think, the thing that it is.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
but
man.
I disagree though, because the whole thing with it was that your idea for it was like we went out for sushi after we talked with Niko and we came up with a cool story, and that's what it was. That was the artistry of it. Like, it's, again, like Nuke's just a tool, like DaVinci is, like Stable Diffusion. It's just different ways to enable you to do art. Nuke is kind of prohibitively expensive, but it's
but now Fusion, which is built into DaVinci Resolve and is a similar node-based compositor, and like Niko and I were talking about this morning, actually has some tools now which Nuke does not.
Yeah.
Like Magic Mask is now built into it.
Yeah.
There's
like
one
Nuke
other, the automatic
like
Z-depth.
Oh yeah, automatic Z-depth, sky replacement.
Sky replacement thing. Yeah. There's like some stuff built into there, and like
I wouldn't be surprised if Nuke reapproaches their licensing over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Because there are more visual effects artists than there ever have been before.
Yeah.
And frankly, with every year that passes, other companies are starting to do things that Adobe's not doing. Like if Adobe doesn't reach like feature parity with like DaVinci Resolve the next year, they're going to start seeing a pretty big exodus, you know? Yeah. It's like Magic Mask is a big deal. It's huge. And like I can get, you know, a year or two between like Magic Mask existing and DaVinci Resolve and like After Effects not having like the equivalent. But after that, it's kind of like downloading. It'd be like buying a 3D program and it doesn't have ray tracing. It's like,
but then there's also the aspect of like you edit your video together and then in Premiere, and then you send the shots out to import into After Effects, and then you export them out again. And in Resolve, you just click on the clip and you go into your compositor. Like it's just a tab. And that system has like, it's changed everything for us working on these crew videos. Is like, you can actually do so much more now. Cause there's just, again, it's like, the creative freedom is like, oh, I want to make a cool illustration of this thing. I'll just click on that clip and go into Fusion. And it's not prohibitive to be like, okay, I have this amount of time. This After Effects layer's janky, whatever. It's just
it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
Like, it's not this weird like side quest you have to go on to complete your video. It's so cool. Like,
the tools are getting way better, and like with every year they're getting way better, and it's really wonderful to see. And it's really important not to take it for granted, because I think everybody does. Like, we all look at computers, we look at AI, it's like, oh, it's gonna be so much better in 2 weeks, and it's like, haha, it probably will be, but like, it's funny, but in reality, it's because people are working their asses off, and like they're working hard in it, and it's not a guarantee that stuff does get better, and it's not a guarantee that new tools come out. It's just, thankfully, we live in a world where people value it, and everybody's working hard to make new tools. Everybody's working hard to share information. And like, that's only going to continue if people put in the work to make it continue.
And the people who put that out for free, man, huge props to them. Like, who's the guy who created Blender, or is the head guy of Blender?
Super cool Dutch dude.
Yeah, that Dutch dude is like, that guy's just a straight G.
And the amount of money that guy has turned down too for all the times Blender is like people tried to acquire it. Yeah. And he's just like, no, I'm good.
It's like, do you know how many people would have just like, I can't learn 3. It's just, I can't learn 3D. It's prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
And Blender's just like, no, it's actually one of the best 3D programs available, and it's just free. Yeah. Unreal Engine, the same thing. Like,
oh my God.
My God, for Fortnite,
Unreal
man.
Engine is like literally the pinnacle of mankind's like programming abilities.
Yeah.
And it's free.
And it's just freaking, it's free.
And also just was like a savvy business move by them to be like, every artist, go learn our program.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know that.
And then now Stable Diffusion was cost what, like 600,000? How, like some crazy amount of money?
It's important to be specific here. So the actual technique, the diffusion image creating technique, is one thing. That's created by, I think, some university students and a guy from Runway ML. Stability AI trained up a model.
Yeah.
And they spent $600,000 training that model.
Yeah.
And they're training more models. And I think that's the kind of business they want to be, is they want to be a model business. It's like, you want a nice model for rendering cars? Well, I got the best model right here.
Right.
Training 4K Lamborghinis, whatever. And honestly, that in the future, that's where the value is going to be in machine learning. It's going to be in the models. It's like the code's like, cool, whatever. You have 2 pages of code that like runs it through machine learning algorithm. Like, whoop-de-doo. It's like the model that you spent the past 2 months training on 5,000 GPUs. That's the thing that has value.
But so that was done with Stable Diffusion 1.4 and 1.5, right?
And it was a team effort once again between Runway and Stability. And I don't know the full details. Part of me thinks that Runway got a little overshadowed in this process.
But so I guess what I'm saying is, like, there was all this money spent on it, and I can just download it for free.
Yes.
100%. And that's the crazy part, is that, again, like Unreal or Blender or all these programs, it's like they put all this work into it, and then it's just like, here you go. We'll try to figure out how to monetize this, but it's not like, there's a bunch of AI tools I see online where I'm like, I've seen a different version of this that's free, and you're trying to repackage it for like $30 a pop, you know? And it's just, I love the open source mentality, and we just want to get as many gatekeepers out of the way as
it's
possible.
the jet ski versus the big ship.
Yeah.
Especially with this kind of stuff, because it's so powerful. It's like, you want it open. You want people learning. Like, imagine math being like behind a paywall. It's like, he's like, no, I want to learn algebra. Just open source it. Yeah. That's basically what we have here. I bet we're going to have to redo character copyright ASAP. It's about time. Because at a certain point, when you acknowledge that somebody like Spider-Man, it's in the cultural mythos, right?
Yeah.
And
freaking Disney.
Anybody can literally anybody right now can still make a Spider-Man film. Nobody's stopping anybody. It's just, you might not make any money off of it.
Yeah.
It's just, we only pay attention to things when they're actually good. And I think that filter is pretty strong.
Yeah.
Like I've come to realize that like, oh, you made it a cool like official video game adaptation. Nobody cares if it unless it's good. Like nobody cares about the Paramount Halo series. It might as well not exist.
Yeah.
Like
don't get me started.
We've already had multiple Halo series live action up to this point anyways. And like nobody really cares about those either. I mean, I take that back. Some people obviously enjoyed some of the other series, but like point being is that if I turn to you and be like, there's an official Halo series coming out, you'd be like, oh, cool. I wonder what it'd look like. You'd be like, oh, it's been done before.
Yeah.
You know, because the others didn't really hit.
Yeah. As long as
Halo.
it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's good. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's made by a dude in his basement or if it's made by Disney. It's like, it only matters if it's good. You know?
Yeah. But Disney wants all the money.
They want all the money. They want control over their IPs.
They want to control our entire popular culture.
Yeah. Dude, if you had two options, let's say you're a bigger business than Disney, and you're gonna buy either Disney and all of the IPs that they own. Don't forget they own Fox, or you can buy literally every other IP in the world. Which one would you pick?
No.
Disney.
I'm buying Disney.
Disney. Yep.
Dang
well,
it.
because Disney's like an anime villain where like 20 years ago they were like
up your childhood.
Yeah, they were like, we have little girls in our back pocket with these princess characters, but we don't have little boys. Well, just wait a little bit. And then it's like, oh, they just bought Star Wars. Oh, they just bought Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like every child is owned by Disney now. Like everything they like.
But you know what? I gotta give Disney props on one thing. And they still have this little spark, this little ember deep in their hearts. The spark of Walt Disney still burns ever so slightly because they still seem to care.
It does. Yeah.
No,
they still seem to care.
It seems authentic still.
It's like Steve inside. It's like, but this is truly for little girls and boys, the most precious things that we have.
Yeah. like, oh man, have you guys seen the little Grogu like Studio Ghibli thing? On
I haven't
Plus?
watched it. No spoilers.
It's just a little 3-minute clip that they posted as a teaser.
Oh man.
And I was like, oh my God. It's so beautiful. And it's so simple.
And
I was
it's true. Like we'll talk shit about the Marvel movies a little bit, but it's like there's still something special there. And like a movie will come out like Black Adam with The Rock, where I'm a massive DC fan and I had zero interest.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is just a skin for a Rock movie.
Yeah.
You know? It's like I couldn't
generate a Rock movie.
They just
The Rock as a superhero.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked to so many people that worked on Disney stuff and Marvel stuff. And it's like each person's like incredibly talented and amazing in their own right. And it's like they're all coming together and working on these projects. It's just, it seems like Disney somehow manages to hit that balance between like, hey, we are a business. It does matter. But also we are honest about our art. You know, it's interesting. Like somehow they have that blend.
I think they are
parks.
It's the parks, but I think it's also the people that putting in positions now. Like you look at Jon Favreau and like Dave Filoni for the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah,
those are guys that love Star Wars.
Yeah,
like,
and Dave Filoni specifically is like George Lucas's straight up Padawan.
Yeah, and it means everything to him. And that even if not all of the new Star Wars stuff is good, there's still like heart in it. Like some Book of Boba Fett, maybe not so much. But then there were 2 episodes of it wasn't that bad.
They were like, hey, Robert, go make a show.
It's like a Spy Kids.
Yeah.
But man, like, watching Andor, I'm just like,
Niko, I know. Like,
I started. I'm 20 minutes in. I started.
This show.
You can relax. Dude, I've started watching it.
It just keeps getting better.
It's so freaking good.
And it gives.
And it had no right to be. It was like, this was the one where I was like, they're doing a show about the secondary character from Rogue One.
And a prequel to the prequel. Like,
and it's like, we know he dies and he's not even the main character of the film. And it's like, it's just so good. Talk about world building, you know, all that stuff. And
maybe that's why it's good. It's because it's about the secondary character from Rogue One. And
it doesn't
gives everybody, all the executives are looking elsewhere and they're finally like, we can make something now.
Well, often it doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's not too connected to like any of the other stuff going on, which so much of the stuff, even like Mandalorian, I loved. And then it was like, even as much as I loved Luke showing up, I was like, they're just doing that thing again where it's like, I know that. But like the biggest like connections in Andor have been like, oh, there's a TIE fighter.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like,
and because it's not like, look, all the TIE fighters, it's terrifying when a TIE fighter shows up.
You're
That's
like,
great.
oh crap. Like, oh, TIE fighter.
But TIE fighters are the scrubbiest of like,
yeah,
but it's so cool because the way they present it.
It's just like you have that little childhood thing of like, oh, cool, I know what a TIE fighter sounds like. And then when you're in a scene and you start to hear that echoing through a valley in the distance, you're like,
yeah, no, it's the Rogue One thing. We were going through Rogue One for that explosions video.
Yeah.
And it's the way that it's not just that it's like, oh, I know that thing. It's the way it's presented is like, oh, this is how it would really feel like. You know, in Rogue One when the Death Star comes up above the horizon.
So cool.
And it's like upside down. And you're like, oh, this is what
It's like that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's taking this like goofy kids film and being like, we're gonna like, this is how a planet ending thing would actually feel. Or like in this show, it's like how a rebellion would actually function in order to like overthrow a fascist government, you know?
Yeah.
And it's I am so that show and also Tales of the Jedi, which we talked about a little bit, is like Star Wars is firing on all cylinders right now. I don't want them to just let Dave Filoni and Tony Gilroy do everything.
Yeah.
And don't do anything.
Never let Robert Rodriguez
like Rise of Skywalker.
Under no circumstances ever do
like
anything.
If I like in Stable, you have your positive prompts and your negative prompts. I'm gonna put in Dave Filoni and Tony Gilroy in positive, and in
tons of parentheses too.
Yeah, with tons of parentheses, and then in negative, I'm gonna put Rise of Skywalker with like 800 parentheses.
Yeah. It's cool too because Andor and Tales of the Jedi could not be more different.
Yeah.
Like,
and Tales of the Jedi like brings a bit of that, like it's still for kids, which I think is so critical to Star Wars, and Andor's totally not for kids.
Yeah.
So you still need to have that, right? Because it is for kids at the end of the day. But yeah, they're really doing it really well.
By the time we start making our own Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean that as in like we make a fan film.
Yeah, let's just find a quick $1 billion franchise.
No, we'll make our own franchise. That's
No, that's what I'm saying is like we'll just pull out a quick, idea for that.
I actually don't think it's that hard.
No.
I know it's like what? But seriously, I actually don't think it's that hard. It just takes commitment and good writing. And that's it. Like
again,
look at Brandon Sanderson. He's made whole universe. I mean, look at George R.R. Martin. Like, he can't finish the book, but
yeah.
People just want to see stuff that's good.
Yeah,
like
just put me in a world. I don't care. Like, look at how many cartoons are successful.
Yeah,
just
and like we're
worlds.
saying, man, like with this tech, the way it's going, it's like it's gonna allow us as a small studio to do something like that.
Yeah,
which I think is really cool.
Yeah, point we got to start writing and start shooting.
Yeah,
which we're working on it. So, all right. I should go home and have dinner.
and watch Andor.
Andor.
And please, yes, watch Andor so we can talk about it.
After dinner. And then I'm going to check on my Stable Diffusion Dream Booth model. And then I'm going to hit go on a render. And then I'm going to play Elden Ring. I'm going to go to sleep.
Man, that's a good night.
Yeah. I was listening to an AMA with the CEO of Stability AI. And he could and he's just all these questions. And it's like right in the thick of like all this drama they had a few weeks ago. And somebody asked the questions like, it's like, what do you like to do in your free time? He's like, I just want this to be in someone else's hands so I can play Elden Ring finally. I was like, oh man, I feel that. Oh
yeah, that's me with that new Halo update, man.
Dude, that's me with The Witcher Wild Hunt. And Red Dead Redemption 2.
Dude,
I bought it the day it came out, haven't installed it.
Don't even bother. It's Red Dead Redemption 2 is like glorious, but like the moment you start playing it, you're like, this is like, there's so little regard for my time.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
That's going to be my paternity leave game. Like Calvin was born, I bought the game, played the intro was cool, and it's like, cool, here's your camp. Here's 1,000 things you can do. And it's like, I can ride my horse for like 10 minutes to a creek and go fishing and just
it's
like just give me all the guns and let me start shooting everybody.
It's like give me a 2-hour experience.
Yeah. Yep. So anyways, I keep playing Elden Ring and I have 300 hours in that, so whatever. To be fair, like 100 of those are leaving it on overnight. Yeah. Okay. Bye everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye everyone.